Welcome back to Game Points. I am your host, Matthew Ross, and the voice changes a little bit after midnight. It's our weekly lady segment.
When does it start screeching?
Screeching?
The voice.
You know, I'm trying to be
I'm
suave and debonair and have a fun segment here, an excuse to have a lady on the program. Trying to introduce her properly.
Absolutely.
You know, seductive music, albeit cheesy, but it's the way we do things here on the show.
I hear you.
And you got to interrupt with your snide remarks.
I'll go in the corner.
As I was saying, let me calm down here. Let me pour myself something.
I'm sorry.
Here. All right. It's after midnight on Game Points. And it's our favorite segment of the show for a variety of reasons. We've had Olympians on in this segment. We've had journalists. We've had miscellaneous. But tonight, we are very pleased to be joined by a contributor to InsideHockey.com. You can follow her on Twitter.com/ACarducci. She hails from New York. We welcome to the program Angie Carducci. Hi, Angie. How are you?
Hi there. Good. How are you?
Very good. Very good, thanks. Thanks for indulging our infighting.
Absolutely. Well, you set your expectations. You set your bar very high with that introduction.
I know, right?
And, yeah, I have great expectations with the suave and debonair voice and the cheesy music. It's you set the bar high for sure.
Brutal. Just brutal. All right. Let's try and make something out of this segment, shall we?
Absolutely.
Here we go. Can you stop laughing for half a moment? God, this is what I'm dealing with here in the studio, Angie. It's like you know what it's like? It's like going to your first social party, and there's two knuckleheads that are against the wall, and they're looking at the girls, but they have no idea how to deal with them. I have two giggle pusses here in the studio. So here's how
the high school dance.
Yeah, here's how we play Game Points Rendez-Vous. We have three gentlemen here in studio: myself, Mo Khan, and Stefano Micella. These are the three people that you're going to hear. Now, each of us will ask you one question. After that question, it's ladies' choice. You either ask us, or any one of us, a question, or you pick one of us to ask you a question. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Question number one. It comes from me. You cover hockey for InsideHockey.com.
Mm-hmm.
What made you get into covering hockey?
Sure, that's an easy one. I've just loved the sport all my life, and back in college in Pittsburgh, I wanted to get into sports journalism, and I was happened to be sitting at the sports desk at my college newspaper one day when I got the phone call from a guy that was looking for interns to cover hockey for his new hockey publication, and he was looking for submissions, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to be the beat writer for the Penguins for his publication. At the time, he couldn't pay anything, but I was getting a media pass. That sounded good to me, so I got started then and have been lucky enough to stick with it ever since. And that was a great time to get involved with covering the Penguins. You know, Mario Lemieux had been in Pittsburgh for quite some time at that point, and the Penguins were kind of starting on the early 90s Stanley Cup runs. So great time to get involved with covering the sport here. And a few lean years after that, but it picked up again. So just been a really great time for a lot of years to cover hockey here.
Mo Khan?
Hi, Angie. My question for you is, who has been the most fascinating interview that you've conducted throughout your writing career?
The most fascinating interview?
Yes.
I think the most fascinating player overall that I've ever covered, and I've had the privilege of covering so many great players, covering the Penguins, just, so many superstar players have passed through this town, and you don't realize sometimes how fortunate you are until you look at the list and say, my gosh, we've really been lucky here. But I think the most fascinating of those characters has been Jaromir Jagr, and he's still just an all-time favorite player of mine. And just a really interesting guy, really cerebral guy and a little bit quirky, and you are not really, sure what's going on with him when you talk to him sometimes. And then he'll come out with things, and you just see how deep those waters sort of run with him. And just really fascinating perspectives on not just hockey, but just life in general, and just a super neat guy. So I really enjoyed the chance to cover him. And I think once he went to New York and became the captain for the Rangers, he really sort of found his groove as far as his leadership. And ever since then, last year covering him with the Flyers was an interesting process because he's really just grown through all of these years, but has stayed very much the same, kind of an enigma, and just never quite sure what you're going to get out of him. He's always a fascinating character.
All right, Stefano.
Hi, Angie. Due to the lockout and the fact that none of us are able to watch the NHL right now, which player do you miss the most watching?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. It's so many great players just not playing hockey right now. I think from a pure just watching the magic that player makes perspective, on a nightly basis. I'm fortunate to get to watch a couple of great guys here in Pittsburgh, but I think the guy that always just dazzles me with the creativity and how he can just make something out of nothing on the ice is Evgeny Malkin. And I haven't really gotten to catch much of him playing in the KHL, but he's been playing pretty successfully there, and hopefully he can just get back on the ice and be playing again for the Penguins pretty soon, because it's a shame. Day by day you kind of see more guys signing up for overseas, and it makes you think every name you see that signs on overseas, you get a little less hopeful that the season's going to work out on this side of the pond. Every guy I see sign, I think, oh boy, there's another guy that doesn't feel very hopeful about it. So I would say for me, I like watching kind of that magician sort of guy like Evgeny Malkin, and watching what he can create on a nightly basis. And, just hoping we'll get to see that sometime this year.
You haven't subscribed to KHL Center Ice yet?
I have not.
Oh.
I have not. But I see they occasionally have games on that we can watch, and I just haven't been able to sync that up yet. So, but hey, what an opportunity for them! They really need to start getting a little bit of better marketing here in North America. I think just overall, if they're going to have that kind of product, they're obviously having some players that I think people would be interested in watching, players from, their home teams. And I think people would be interested in not only watching the games, but also, even some merchandise, that kind of stuff. I think the KHL is missing an opportunity here to get a little more widespread traction.
All right, Angie, so we've each asked you one question. It's ladies' choice now. You can either ask any one of us a question, or you can pick one of us to ask you a question.
Let's see. How about, Matthew doesn't to be on the show, so how about I will go with you for a question?
Oh, wow. All right.
And why don't you tell me who your all-time favorite NHL player is?
Interesting. All right. I'll do that. Not a problem. My all-time favorite NHL player, to me, is Ryan Smith of the Edmonton Oilers. Why are these guys laughing here in studio? I don't know why. Ryan Smith is, I really was captivated in April, or I think it was April or May of 90, I think it was April of 96 when Todd Marchant scored in overtime, and the Edmonton Oilers upset the Dallas Stars in Game 7 of the playoffs in the first round, and I became a huge Ryan Smith fan for several years after that. So I would say Ryan Smith. Just love the hard-nosed way that he would always represent his country as well and play the game.
That's good stuff. Any love lost when he had his brief jump away from Canada? Yeah,
that was tough, wasn't it? When he was traded, and the crying in the press conference. I was kind of more mad at the Oilers than him, and he was okay outside of Edmonton, but it was kind of just weird to see him in other different uniforms, and nice to see him finish his career here with the Edmonton Oilers, and hopefully he'll come back with this lockout. You never know some of these older players, but in any event, you've been quite pleasant to deal with here on the show, and like these two knuckleheads in studio. So I appreciate your putting up with us for an episode here of Game Points Rendezvous.